recording now. Let me think. How do I do this again?
I say, good evening, I'm BlueHighwind, and here's the topic of discussion today, and here's the people. That's typically how you start it.
Okay, all right, we're starting that way. So Techno just introduced us to the podcast right now. I'm BlueHighwind, and welcome to the Final Fantasy Wiki, the podcast about the Final Fantasy Wiki. We talk about Final Fantasy and sometimes Wiki stuff. I'm BlueHighwind, and good evening. With me tonight is, of course, Technobliterator, who you just heard, and two other people. Catuse, say hello.
Hello, this is Catuse.
SomeColorMage, say hello.
Hello.
Technobliterator, say hello again.
Hello, this is Technobliterator. I'm back in Texas, and my voice doesn't sound like shit anymore.
Kind of sounds the same to me, to be honest.
Yeah, it sounds exactly the same.
Was the last podcast? No. Is this mic not even on?
I don't know. It's too late for you to do technical changes because we're going. It's time now. So it is January 2023, and as with all things about 2023, we don't care because we're looking back at 2022. 2023, it's been depressing so far. It's been, frankly, a terrible year. So let's talk about 2022 instead. I mean, like, would you agree 2023 terrible so far? Techno, I think you killed your mic.
Did I?
Maybe.
Well, you heard that, so I can't have killed it that badly.
Okay, I heard someone talking.
Oh, it was probably me.
Okay. All right, I'll have to edit that bit out, but I'll work around that. All right, so...
Okay.
2023, the games media is dying horribly.
Yep.
And the tech industry is firing everybody. And Avengers is dying too. The Avengers video game. And yeah, so it's just kind of dark times so far. So let's talk about 2022 instead.
There's an asterisk next to the tech industry firing everyone, which is...
We'll come back to that.
We will come back to that.
Okay.
So,
all right. We
should start with the news, I think. This is already, like, our most chaotic podcast we've ever done. Like, it's a complete mess already. I like it.
That would be impressive. That would be very impressive compared to the other ones.
This is interesting energy. So, our first news report of the year is the Square Enix president decided that he was going to double down on a little thing called NFTs. Remember NFTs? Yeah, I don't know why.
Thank you.
Square Enix CEO, this is Yosuke Matsuda, and he's like, multiple blockchain gaming events held overseas recently produced more active discussion than ever before.
Woo!
Yep. Yeah, it's
basically
his argument was it failed for everybody else. But that means there's more space for us to grow. We have less competition now.
Meanwhile, the CDC does its yearly survey of people in the industry. And the side result is more people than ever are saying that they are not going to develop anything involving the blockchain.
Yep. Blockchain. Here's another quote. This is a choice quote. Blockchain has been an object of exhilaration and a source of turmoil. But with that in the rearview mirror, we hope that blockchain games will transition to a new stage of growth in 2023.
I don't think the turmoil's in the mirror.
No.
Right.
Well, I mean...
The FTX guy isn't even sentenced yet. Come on, man.
Yeah. Tom Brady lost $60 million on the blockchain. It's been a disaster.
Whoa!
Yeah. That's the rumor. I don't know if
I
that's
didn't know
actually
about
been...
this. That's pretty funny.
I don't know if that's been exactly confirmed, because it's not like anyone has...
Yeah, and a bunch of other celebrities got sued over blockchain for, like, misleading people or some shit.
Yeah, apparently he invested some money in the FTX thing that, of course, no longer exists. So all that money's gone. I don't know if it was $60 million. It's just funnier to say it that way.
I mean, the crypto companies blowing up is never not funny. Like, I remember that one. Was it Crypto.com that splurged a ton of money on getting a sponsorship deal on an arena, and like later last year, Crypto.com has completely collapsed, and the owners of the stadium are trying to figure out how to get out of that licensing deal.
I don't know what I can say about crypto to shit on it that I haven't already said in previous episodes. I'm glad it's failing. That's all I'm gonna say. And if Square Enix want to keep trying with this, it's your funeral.
How much money is Square Enix actually putting into it? Are they just saying they're putting in money? Are they putting like 20 mil? Or are they going for like they're going all in? They're putting like $1 billion in it. What are they doing? I can't find this information anymore.
Well, I don't know if that information's ever going to be available. Yeah.
I don't think they're putting much in, because at one point they claimed that they were putting all the money from the IDO sale into it, and then later they said, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah, that'd be a ridiculous amount of money to put in. From what I can tell, and I've speculated this before, is that they have like one project going, they have one egg in the basket, and this is their strategy for a lot of things. Maybe it'll sprout and make them trillions of dollars. Maybe it'll fail. But I am somewhat concerned that he continues to go and hit this drum when, NFT crap could not be less popular across the industry, and probably unpopular on Wall Street too. So I don't know who he's even talking to anymore.
Yeah, it's just... I mean, sometimes based on the NFT stuff that Square has actually tried to show off, I'm still not convinced they know what an NFT is.
Does anybody really?
Fair point.
Yeah. So, how about some lighter news? This is from a couple weeks ago. This is a Kotaku article about this. I think you guys listened to this mod, because I did not. There's a new Final Fantasy VII voice mod. It's supposed to make the original game entirely voiced. It's created by a team called... Or I think the mod is called Echo S7, and created by
the mod is called Echo S7. The guy who created it is called Sunamods, and he has a bunch of other different mods. So you can put this voice mod together with like a graphics mod, together with like a gameplay rebalancing mod. Like, you can put it together with a bunch of things to basically make playing Final Fantasy VII a whole new experience. And I actually have talked to quite a few of the voice actors involved with this mod. I was even on the podcast for the voice director who plays Cloud, I think, in it. And I can tell you at the very least, they have worked very, very hard on this thing.
Okay. Is there any way you can get me in on this? Maybe I could play, I don't know, Don Corneo or something? A tiny role that no one would like.
I could ask around, because I can say they are working on Final Fantasy VIII and IX.
Okay, all right. I want to be in Final Fantasy VIII. I want to be the big yellow guy underneath the garden. He kind of looks like
Norg.
Norg, yeah. I want to be Norg. I was gonna call him MODOK, but I'm like, he's definitely not MODOK. or I could be Adele. No, I shouldn't play Adele. I think that's a bad idea. I think MODOK is not MODOK. Norg is more my skill set. Anyway, this kind of hit some traction because apparently the trailer has a lot of cursing in it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is interesting because Final Fantasy VII does have cursing in the script. A lot of it's covered up.
Cursing, yeah.
A lot of it's covered up in like the special characters, like $! Exclamation point, whatever. So I guess they've went and had some creative liberties with this.
They've had numerous creative liberties. So, for example, it's not just the voice text you see. Like, it's not just the text boxes that show up that are voiced. It's also, they added voice lines to the characters' animations. Like, so like, I think when Cloud does Meteor Rain, as an example, I think he says, "Let's dance, asshole," like he does in 7 Remake. They've also... they've also added
To be fair,
added-
Cloud does sell it in remake, so
Yep. And they added it to the cutscenes that didn't have any kind of script at all, other than the final cutscene of FF7. So the FMV cutscenes, they added voice lines to them. And they added some unique parts of the, like, so the one that blew up was, I have my opinions on this and whether they should have put this on the trailer or not. But basically, the one thing that got a lot of traction was in the mini game in Marco Reactor 5, when there's that button pressing mini game and you have to press it the same time as everyone else.
Yeah, which
in
sucks.
the original game, every time you fail it, Tifa just says, "No good, let's try again." Fail again. "No good, let's try again." "No good, let's try again." And it just repeats the same thing. This time they added it so that every time you fail it, she says a new line, and then they change it. And eventually, if you fail it enough times, she flips out on you, throws a tantrum, and then just smashes the whole thing, and you just run through. And they put that in the trailer.
Wait. So I guess this is more than just a voice mod. They've also, like, machinied the characters a little bit.
Yeah, they did.
Okay.
So
yeah,
it was
it's
kind of...
absolutely not an accurate translation.
Yeah, it was kind of like that addition. Like, okay, I'll give you my opinion. Is basically, first of all, if I were responsible for this mod, I would not put something like that in the trailer. First of all, I think it's nice as a fun little Easter egg that you've thrown in and that people can discover on their own. I wouldn't put something like that in the trailer. I disagree with that decision. The other thing I disagree with is I don't think that's something Tifa would say. Barrett would say it. I think it would make a lot of sense for Barrett to be like, "Oh man, this is taking too much fucking time. Shoot up the whole console and then run through." Like, it would make sense for him to do it. It just doesn't seem like Tifa to just flip out and cuss everyone out.
Well,
but
you are the Tifa expert, Techno. Like, you have your
this
bachelor
is true.
degree.
I did write her page.
Your bachelor degree is in Tifaology.
I wouldn't put it that way, but yeah, I mean, I fundamentally disagree with decisions like that. But with that said, I will still say the voice actors are all, I think, really good. I think they really worked hard on this, and as much as I have disagreements with decisions like that, I still think this is probably a really good mod, and it's really good. It's really good to play. You know, you just have to keep in mind this wasn't written by Square, and they probably wouldn't have portrayed their characters in this way.
Okay, would it work with a regular with a regular PS1 emulator? Maybe that's too technical.
This works with the
All mods are PC.
Okay, so the whole thing is its own executable.
Yeah, so basically, you go on their website, which is sunamods.com, and you add in, so you go on their website, and then I think there's a link you can click, and the link explains to you how you can download the mod for the Steam version of the game. And, the other thing I'll say
so it does work for the Steam version, then. All right.
Yeah. So the other thing I'll say on this is they are unpaid doing this. So these are people who are up and coming voice actors, and you know they've put in all this legwork just out of their love for the game, and you know they are fans as much as we are, and like we are also unpaid. And so
we are unpaid, aren't we?
So as much
Shit.
Yeah, so as much as I think that that like I do have fundamental disagreements with a lot of stuff that a lot of the decisions they've made, I also acknowledge they've worked extremely hard on this. It's a very good mod, and so I think people should cut them a bit of slack.
Okay. All right. That's a lot on that. We have two big DLCs this month. Stranger of Paradise's new DLC and Final Fantasy XIV 6.3 God's Rebel Lands Tremble, whatever.
Stranger of Paradise DLC out yet? I forget what.
I thought what? I should know these things.
Yeah, there was the discussion about it in the general chat this morning.
Stranger of Paradise.
Yeah, the
DLC.
discussion was like, so they put up they had a revelation in this DLC, which is when Mog from Dissidia, so the Dissidia Mog comes in and said, "Oh, I found a garland that wasn't you," and my reaction to that was just kind of like, I miss the days of when I was editing wikis and some information like that would pop up in a journal entry or in a cutscene that I could cite that instead of just saying it happens in gameplay. But beyond that, I didn't have a strong reaction to it. I will say, like, at least in the story aspect, I found this DLC
Well, you've watched
quite
the trailer?
interesting.
I mean, you've watched it already?
I've watched bits of it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I will say, like, the story around this game does get more and more intriguing to me the more I find out about it.
Okay. SomeColorMage, I assume you haven't gotten to it yet, because it only came out yesterday, January 27th.
I haven't played it yet. I do. I believe they've also like toned down the problems with the older DLC, so I'll probably get to it eventually.
What problem was that? It was too difficult, right?
Yeah, the problem is there's like really overtuning could only really be done with it could only really be done with people who like knew what they're fucking doing with gearing and stuff. But they did eventually tone that down over time. Like there is an easy mode. There is like not an easy mode, but there's like sort of a cheat mode to get through the story, which I believe it was that gives you permanent chaos bringer. It's Jack super mode, which allows you to just completely cheese the game, because if you have stack enough, I forget which job class it is, but when you have 400% affinity with that class, you're invincible as long as you're in Lightbringer or Chaosbringer. So, combined with that mode, you are just invincible for the entire thing.
So is it kind of like the jump when you take from Kingdom Hearts 3 to Kingdom Hearts 3 Rewind?
I guess, yeah.
This is already a pretty tough game now.
But like, what happens is that like each DLC, to get through the story, you have to do it in the difficulty of that DLC, which is harder than the previous highest difficulty. So like the base game, once you beat the game, you unlocked Chaos, which went up to level, I think, 300 or so difficulty.
See, I just suck at Souls-like, so I couldn't do that.
And then the Bahamut DLC at the start, it does just give you gear to just boost your item level up to that, but it has to be played on Bahamut difficulty, which goes up to level 400, and you have to beat that to do the Gilgamesh DLC, which requires you to be in Gilgamesh difficulty, which goes up to level 600.
Oh, man.
This all sounds very overly confusing and complicated.
It does sound immensely complicated.
I mean, it's very obvious this is why they went with the Season Pass model, because if you tried to buy the DLCs out of order, they wouldn't do anything.
Yeah,
and like
I guess
you can't buy the DLC separately. You have to buy all three of them or none at all.
Yeah, as opposed to FF15, where there was a Season Pass model, but I don't feel like the Season Pass made that much of, like, it's not like you have to play Episode Gladio first and you have to play Episode Prompto second. Like,
yeah, all of 15's side episodes are standalone.
Right.
And really only the last one was, like, worth it, right, for 15? So I remember...
Yeah, that wasn't part of the Season Pass.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Arden one. The Arden one was
they
legit
wanted it to be
pretty
part
good.
of Season Pass too, but then someone had to fuck off and cancel all of the Season Pass 2 things except for Arden.
Well...
Oh, actually, like, if you're on about the last one from the Season Pass, which was Episode Ignis, that was the best episode from that.
I was also thinking that, too, because I remember the first one being Episode Gladio, I think. I remember that was like 10 minutes
so
long.
disappointed. Like, I can't tell you, like, how
Gladio,
excited. I can't tell you how excited.
Prompto
Oh, sorry, go
was
ahead.
okay. Comrades is bad. Ignis is just best by default in that lot.
Yeah, I can't tell you how excited I was for an episode where you play as the best character in the game, and you fight Gilgamesh, and freaking Battle of the Big Bridges in it. I can't tell you how much that sounded like the perfect DLC for FF15 for me, and it came out and it just sucked. I was so disappointed.
Well, we don't need to rehash 15.
Yeah, what the fuck was that excuse for a Gilgamesh? Like,
Okay.
how many arms do you expect Gilgamesh to have?
He had one.
At least 8.
Didn't he have one
At
arm?
least 8. How many arms did Gladio's Gilgamesh have? Yeah, he had 1.
Like, what the fuck?
I think that's really clever, alright? You expect Gilgamesh to have 16 arms? No, he's got 1 arm. Look,
so
they
stupid.
swerved you. They swerved you with the number of arms.
He should have as many arms as the number of the game. So, like, in 15, he should have 15 arms. If he managed to show up in 16, he should have grown to 16th in the interim.
I like that.
Okay, we have so much to cover
Yeah.
today. We don't need to do 15 again, as we always do.
Yeah.
We have
Oh,
Final
man.
Fantasy 14
All right.
6.3. Tell me about that. What's cool about that?
So it has.
You want to start, Kat? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So the 3 big additions, and there are probably others. So there's story, which is filler, but it has Rubicante, and it has a version of the meme version of the Final Fantasy IV boss theme. They brought in the guy who made the meme version to make the boss theme for Rubicante. But otherwise, the story is basically just filler. We don't really.
What do you mean meme version?
You know the Hayden version of the battle against the Poor Fiends?
No. I don't know anything about it.
I think it's in spoiler. I think I posted it in spoiler chat a bit back.
Okay.
Oh wait, you weren't on about the song that's like the puppet song? They're like
No, stop
Like,
that
that's
right
not
now.
that song.
What are you talking
That's
about?
That's what you meant
the
by-
theme.
I thought that's what you meant by meme FF4 boss song.
No, what are you talking
Battle
about?
with the 4 Fiends, where Barbaricha like loves girls and Rubicante wants to
Hold
take his robe off.
hold on. I'll just link it again, Price.
Okay.
Yeah, can you link it in Penguins? Because I really have no
Yeah.
idea. Was this official Final
here's
Fantasy
what.
anything, or was this a fan made this?
This is a fan-made thing, but for this patch, they hired the guy that did it to rearrange the song again.
Oh shit, this is actually decent. Oh, okay.
So for Rubicante's boss fight, they brought back this guy to make his boss theme.
That's funny.
So that's a thing. We can talk about the new 24-man raid and how everyone's horny for gods later, but something I do want to.
I mean, we can just answer the main question of that anyone who was thinking the last time we talked about this is asking. Yes, Nafika's tits are exactly as big as she is in that artwork.
Yay!
Oh wait, so we saw her like real life her.
Yes.
Okay.
And Menfina's
like,
a
they
macho
haven't-
girl. Yeah.
Yeah, they haven't exactly answered what's going on, but they made it pretty clear what the case is, because like the big thing at the end is that there was actually another member of the gods that has been left off of things, and it's very, very strongly implied to be the Watcher, which is a character from the main story arc that Heidelin created him just to watch over Zodiac's prison on the moon. So it is implied that these are all creations of Heidelin.
All right, I'm not going to ask any follow-up questions because I don't know anymore. None of that makes any sense to me anymore.
Okay. And the Final Fantasy 14 lore at this point is very much like anything Final Fantasy after it becomes long enough. Like the Final Fantasy 7 storyline, no one can follow it anymore. Kingdom Hearts, no one can follow anymore. Final Fantasy 14, if you haven't been following it from day one, no one can follow it anymore. That's just how we like it.
Hey, I could explain Kingdom Hearts lore in about 30 seconds. Unfortunately, we don't have the time right now, so we will not be
I
doing
could
that.
explain Final Fantasy VII lore in 30 minutes, but we definitely don't have that
Definitely
time.
don't have that much time, yeah.
Yeah.
No. Final Fantasy VII lore is real easy. All right, there's an evil alien, and her son is in love with Cloud, and capitalism is bad. Done.
Okay, that's a pretty decent summary. But
Yep. Yeah, there you
next topic.
So, I guessing the third thing you wanted, Kat, was the ultimate?
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe I should explain what an ultimate difficulty raid is. So these are the this is the highest difficulty setting that a boss can have in Final Fantasy XIV, and usually it's usually in-game explained as some sort of like ridiculous fanfic that Yoshi P's self-insert wrote about the characters.
Oh, was that the one with the frickin' Bahamut fight that made me quit the game?
No,
No.
you were
That an
stuck on
ultimate?
you were stuck on normal difficulty, Bahamut.
Oh yeah, well there you go. That tells you how hard these games are. Like these fights are.
So no, there is an ultimate difficulty version of Bahamut where he like goes golden mode Super Saiyan, but that's not what you were doing.
Okay.
No, so the ultimate difficulty version of Omega came out on Tuesday, the Omega Protocol, and no one has beaten it yet. People have been going 12 to 16 hours a day every day since like 5 a.m. Eastern time on Tuesday, whenever the patch came out. And we are still a long way off from seeing a clear. And it's certainly possible that Square Enix has maybe gone too far this time with the difficulty, though we don't know that for certain.
Like last I checked was I think yesterday, and the furthest anyone had publicly gotten was like the first mechanic of the 5th phase.
That is still where everyone is.
Yeah, because
People
I
have made
remember
no progress since then.
it was that Final Fantasy XI boss that was infamous because it was so hard that a team of raiders spent about 24 hours trying to beat it, and then they gave up specifically because they were worried that either A, one of them were going to get killed, or two, this was going to become a news story about how crazy gamers were, and it definitely became part 2.
Yes, well, thankfully, the higher difficulty fights in 14 have a 2-hour limit baked in. So
Okay.
Rip.
So you have to take a break, yes. But people keep grinding, and yeah, we are nowhere near clear. Unfortunately, the competition was marred a bit this time. This is why I wanted to mention this on the news. So I mean, aside from this, there's some issues with balancing and whatever. So this boss has too many status effects. You can only have 30 status effects on a player character at a time, and that includes like self buffs that you need to have in order to use your abilities. And the boss gives so many status effects that certain jobs cannot properly do their like ability rotation because it hits the buff cap at 30, and yeah. The second like bug is that it seems like and maybe I guess this was like a disgruntled Square Enix employee. Maybe they haven't made any public statements about what this. Yeah, someone leaked a bunch of what looks like quality assurance, like beta testing footage from the 5th phase of the fight. So further than anyone has seen publicly, like on a stream or whatever so far. Yeah, just leaked it to Bilibili yesterday for the whole world to see.
Okay, so I have a question. Because I don't play this game, but I'm going to ask a dumb question anyway. Is it so difficult because this boss is just... the numbers are too high, and they need to make their numbers get bigger? Or is it an actual strategic puzzle that they are unable to solve?
It is a ladder, yes.
Okay.
Basically, Ultimate, you actually cannot gear up for your item level is fixed to a specific value. You can rearrange your equipment to get a better like distribution of stats, but like your total is fixed.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, and just for context, so that Bahamut fight I was referring to, like that has this stupid ass mechanic where, like, you know, if you are like standing in a certain bit, then it doesn't matter that it's just you. Everyone dies. Like.
Yeah, you were
Right.
on you were on 5-5, right? The Twintania. The Twintania is known for being really fucking broken. It's not that broken anymore because they
Thank God
fixed a
for
lot
that.
of the worst of it, but it's still a very obtuse fight that that a lot of the mechanics were cheese because the platform that the fight is on is not exactly even. So everyone decided for a bunch of mechanics, instead of actually doing them, we can hide on this one bit of the arena that's lower elevation than the rest of it, and all the attacks just go over everyone's head.
Oh, great.
Well,
That's funny.
why didn't you think of that, Techno?
And that is why pretty much every fight since has been on a flat, square, or circular surface.
Well, at the time, I was told that the way I should beat it is to not even participate and to just jump off the cliff or something, right? And so I told the guy to screw off. And then
I
I
mean,
quit the
you
game.
encountered a fucking asshole, which
Yep.
Fight 5 in particular is full of because in A Realm Reborn, Savage difficulty wasn't a thing yet. So everyone was filtered into the harder difficulties
Yeah, so
of the
basically, the
fight.
game has gotten better since then.
And I mean, if you came back today, we could just fucking destroy Twintania. We just turn on undersized party, and you don't even need full 8 people to do it. Like level 50
Oh,
stuff
okay.
just gets steamrolled.
Interesting.
Well, if I ever have 6 months and no other video game to play, I will do all of Final Fantasy XIV. But I don't think that's
Yeah,
ever
same.
gonna happen.
When I finish the FF and the RNC wikis, that's when I'll do it.
RNC? Oh, Ratchet and Clank.
Ratchet and Clank. When I finish those 2 wikis, that's when I'll do it.
I was like Roller Noster Kaitoon?
Roland.
But anyway, we were talking about the buff cap thing earlier, which is really funny because it's impossible to tell whether or not this circumstance of it is a bug or just them deliberately trolling the players, because that sounds like something Omega would actually do, exploiting the limitations of the game world. Because like this 13 cap, this is historical PS3 limitations. Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn is a game that was way too ambitious for its target platform, even though they had toned it down from version 1. It still was still really a bit too much for the PlayStation 3, and throughout A Realm Reborn and Heavensward, there were a lot of UI changes had to be made with the consideration that if they added too much to the user interface, they were scared that it would use up so much memory it would not fit in the PS3's memory limit. So
It's amazing that this game has lasted like 3 console generations now.
Is it still...
So that's why.
Sorry, SomeColorMage, is it still supported for PlayStation 3 all these years later?
No, you cannot play it on PS3 anymore.
Damn.
But like that is where the 30 came from. Like, you know, if there's only a maximum of 30 visible status effects on screen, we probably won't have to draw so many buff and debuff items that we overflow our limit. And like that was a problem, but this was a problem in A Realm Reborn, so they couldn't add more space to it. So their fix for it was that only 30 are visible, but for enemies, and only enemies, if you attach more buffs and debuffs to it, those buffs and debuffs will not actually show up visually, but still apply up to a cap of 60. Which, yes, that is... And so everything worked fine because, you know, most of the time when this cap was a limit, it's because you're in an alliance raid, and back in the day, everyone had damage over time effects, so everything had like had like 50 damage over time effects on it at once. Everything was all good. But this time around, it's affecting the players because so one of Omega's attacks is called Hello World. This is a signature attack of his final phase in Savage difficulty. And,
it's literally called Hello World.
Yes.
Yes. Omega is the world's worst programmer.
Yes.
Programmer
Omega is a
Humor,
robot. He does this a lot. I mean,
That's
I should
cool.
say
That's
that does it a
cool,
lot
brother.
because the preceding phase is the one where it decides that the way it can beat humanity is to emulate humanity and creates like male and female versions of itself to Julia, and then
What?
like in Savage after that.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it does.
let me
It does
post a
the
picture of
end.
this.
It does the end of Shin Godzilla, where this super horrifying Godzilla creature starts creating humans at the end of its tail.
Yeah, this is what
Yeah.
Omega turns into. I mean, I posted in the Penguins.
Wait, that. All right, no. Those are near characters. Excuse me. Those are clearly
Is
near
it not?
characters.
No, he just turns into the cast from Nier.
Okay.
That's
This
so
is
funny.
Omega's secret hidden technique. And he tries to learn how to do limit breaks and stuff because that's what Final Fantasy XIV player characters
Yeah.
do.
All right. Near Replicant does this with
Omega.
Adam and Eve. Yeah.
But anyway,
love
Hello
Omega.
World was really the first of like a recurring kind of mechanic where like the boss just like gives everyone like like 3 different debuffs. Each one means something different, and when the timers on those debuffs run out, like they don't have a negative effect on the person, but when the debuff timer runs out, it causes an attack to go off centered on that player. So like, and like usually that's fine because it's just usually like 2 or 3 things. But the ultimate version of Hello World, it just shits out tons and tons of status effects. This one attack lasts longer than the entire first phase of the fight. There's just so many status effects coming out that like if you're doing something like Dancer, where like half of Dancer's attacks rely on having a randomly applied buff on yourself, your mechanics just stop working because you dodge your own buff because there's no room to put it.
Okay. I guess I'll
Game is
ask for
very
an,
broken and cursed.
I guess I'll ask for an update next month as to if everyone's beaten Omega. I can report though that Omega weirdly hot. Was not expecting that.
Yeah.
The female version, yeah. That's interesting.
I wasn't.
You can actually I don't know if you can do the male version, but I know you can definitely get the female version as like a DLC, like custom glamour you can spend real money on.
Okay.
In case and you can also get her weapon now that now if you beat the ultimate difficulty version of the fight. So you can become horny Omega
All right.
if you so choose.
I
This
wasn't
is the character you
specifying
play in
male
Final
or
Fantasy
female.
14.
I was not specifying male or female when I said Omega was hot, by the way.
Yes, the
they're
Techno
both
was.
hot.
Yeah. All right. Well,
I
you
was.
know. Okay. So, we have rumors of future
Yeah.
things to come. So I don't know what. We can give this about 10 seconds. So there's a 4chan rumor that got posted to general about what's coming up. That supposedly there's supposed to be a Final Fantasy 35th anniversary presentation, specifically February 7th. Has not been announced yet, but like presentations get announced 2 days before they happen. So, rumor is that there's going to be Final Fantasy IX remake, Final Fantasy X-3, World of Final Fantasy II, and Final Fantasy Tactics remastered. I guess.
Yeah, I don't
Sounds
buy.
bullshit.
Yeah.
I
know
don't
about that
buy
one.
any of those except. Okay, so I'll clarify this. The only one of those I buy is 9 Remake for reasons I've discussed on previous episodes. I
It's been rumored
completely
before.
buy that one. Yeah,
That was
exactly.
in
It's
one
been
of the
rumored
big
previously.
leaks. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been rumored previously, and a lot of the other leaks were correct. I buy that one. I don't buy any of the others for a second. I don't like the idea of Final Fantasy X-3 because if they did revisit 10, I would much rather they did a prequel. That's the second thing. And the third thing is I'm just going to caveat all of this with I remember the day leading up to E3 2015 when me and a former member who was my best friend, Tia Louise, when both of us, we saw those rumors, it was on our old IRC chat room, and we said, nah, this is bullshit. This ain't gonna happen. And the two of us were so dead certain there was not gonna be a Final Fantasy VII remake announced at E3 2015. And then it was announced that night, and I remember, because I specifically remember the second it happened, I messaged her like, yo, what the fuck? We were wrong, holy shit. And then she didn't respond to me until the next morning. She was like, oh shit, we were wrong. So that's all I'm gonna say, is I don't buy it, but I've been wrong in the past.
Okay. I don't buy it because 10.3's window would have been about 10 years ago.
Yeah, I can see that too. That's another reason.
I don't know who 10.3 would appeal to.
I don't want to buy it because there's no way they'll go with my idea of what a 10.3 should be.
Which is?
Go on, I want to hear that.
Tidus's severed head going on a drunken bender, so upset because he's lost Una.
Hell yeah, that would be way better
So
than
sad divorce guy energy Titus is what you want?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like,
But specifically the version of Tidus that gets killed in 10.2.5, where he kicks something he thinks it's a blitzball and it's actually a mine and it blows his head off.
Like, to me, just the idea of, you do a 10 prequel where you flip Final Fantasy X-2 on its head, and it's 10-0 because it's now Jecht, Braska, and Auron. They're on a quest together, and they have their three, and they can change job classes and everything, and you can introduce a whole new combat system around it. Like, to me, like, there's so many things they could do with that idea, and I really wish they did, but,
Play your cards right, and that would be the sexiest game in the series just from Jecht's job outfits alone.
Oh, whoa, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
Techno,
I
didn't you complain about games with no girls in them?
I did complain about games with no girls in them. That is a very fair point. But caveat to that, we have never met Yuna's mother.
Okay.
There's a
so
character.
four playable characters. We'll have Yuna's mom, Braska, Jecht, and Auron.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you made her a playable character. No, but like, I wouldn't mind it within the context of 10 solely because they've had 10-2, which is only playable women. So on that context is like the only context in which I think it would probably make sense.
Yeah, on that, the reason why we have 10-2 is because it's a bunch of reused assets from Final Fantasy X, so it was a pretty easy game for them to just like shoot out right afterwards.
Throw together, yeah.
Yeah, so Final Fantasy X-3 would have to be completely remade from the beginning, and probably would not have the same turn-based battle system, because that's just not what Square Enix does anymore for major releases. It would be interesting if they did it. I would proudly eat crow right here. I would find a crow from the street, boil it, and eat it on the podcast if that happens, but I don't think it's going to.
Well,
yeah, if they did...
considering the kind of the team that the 10 is and like its direct lineage, it would probably be anything along that vein would probably be similar to remake.
Yeah, like if Final Fantasy X was given, I personally wouldn't give it the 7 remake treatment. I would give it the Crisis Core Reunion treatment, wherein you remake all the assets, but the game itself is fundamentally the same. Although I'd tweak a couple things, make the fucking lightning quest.
That's basically what 10.2 HD Remaster is.
Yeah, but they didn't remake all the assets for that. They remade some assets and not all of them. So those some that they did remake look kind of out of place.
And so they made the music worse.
And and a lot of people say they made the music a lot worse. Like, but basically, if they were to do that, I would completely see them also doing a 10.3 to sell people on it more. But I don't see it. Like, so I'm gonna gonna say this leak is probably bullshit.
Yeah, it sounds like they have two things that were heavily implied already, and then just made up some stuff around it to make it sound plausible. So,
Yep.
The other rumor is Square Enix posted this somewhere. I saw this on Twitter. It looks like their upcoming schedule, and Final Fantasy XIII is on here as TBA for PC.
That is a misunderstanding of Square Enix's PR website. They do not constantly update that. Like if you look at the image, conveniently blocked out by the circle, you can see that Final Fantasy XIV is still listed for PS3, despite it not being a PS3 game anymore. It's like they only update that site when they're posting something related to that game to that site. So like there's been no PR for Final Fantasy 13, so they never changed it from PC version TBA.
And that already is on Steam, right? Final Fantasy 13?
Yes.
It is on Steam.
Yeah.
I haven't heard good things about the Steam port.
the PC ports of the 13 trilogy are pretty bad, but they exist.
That's what I heard. Like, I deadass want a Final Fantasy 13 remaster. I never got to play the originals fully. Like, I never got to like fully appreciate them and get to know them very well. There's a chance I wouldn't. There's a chance I might not like it that much. There's a chance I might really like it, and I just haven't had the opportunity to do that. I deadass want a 13 remaster. Like, I know that game has a lot of people who really didn't like it, but for those who did, and for those of us like me who never got the chance to try it, I think we deserve one.
Is that playable at all on PlayStation 4, 13?
No, not even on PS4.
It might be on PS Now.
Oh.
No, it's not. It's not. I have
not?
PS Now. Yeah, I think it was at one point, but I have PS Now. 13 is not on there.
Okay. Yeah, I think Final Fantasy 13 is a fully formed idea. That's how I'm gonna put it. And it's worth seeing, I guess. Yeah, so alright, so I guess that rumor's not true either. Next thing, we have some things that are ending. So, on my birthday, January 11th, I don't know why I'm telling the world that, but the Final Fantasy VII, the first soldier shut down. Rest in peace. Next up,
maybe next time you'll put a battle royale on something with controller support.
Maybe. Other thing is that Marvel's Avengers, which is not a Final Fantasy game and technically no longer even a Square Enix game, I don't think anymore, that is reaching its end of life. So there's going to be a 2.8 update on March 31st. And then all official support for the game will end on September 30th, which means I believe you can keep playing it, but probably will have no longer any online support. And most likely it is not for sale after that anymore either.
Yeah, I think they claimed this online would still be possible. Like, I don't know, maybe it's a P2P thing, so it doesn't really matter if there's official servers.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is being removed from the stores. Everything is being transitioned to in-game currency because there's a fuck shit ton of DLC for that thing, as well as microtransactions.
A lot of paid DLC, expensive paid DLC on that.
Yeah, like something like $75 American for 10 outfits.
What the fuck?
Well, that was money well spent, my friends.
But yeah, like you said, this was Crystal Dynamics, so it's now technically Embracer instead of Square Enix. Also, apparently this was, as far as people could tell, like, new content for this was supposed to be wrapping up for this game this year anyway, except one of their lead developers resigned. So they sped up the timeline for that.
Yeah, this is a game that never really took off the way that Square Enix wanted. Did anyone play it other than me?
I did, and I have exactly the same complaints as you.
Yeah, it is a very well-made, very competent single-player campaign with, I think, like some good ideas of how to handle the Avengers. And I think Kamala Khan is a great protagonist, and I love the chapter in Jersey City, even though it looks nothing like Jersey City. But then everything else about it, the combat system, the idea that you would do these maps over and over again, fighting these boring robot enemies for currency and for hats, whatever, none of that worked at all. No one ever wants to do that. It was not how the game should have been. Guardians of the Galaxy is what they should have made for that kind of game, that exact style. And
yeah,
bad choices were made, and yep.
And like this purchase of like Eidos has really shown to not be a great thing for the Embracer Group so far, because like all that's happened so far is that they've shut down Square Enix Montreal a month after renaming it. Yep. And they've had to shut down the Avengers. But
we are getting a Tomb Raider TV series.
Yeah,
okay.
But I really do not think Embracer is a company that appears to be run or managed exactly well, and they can be kind of fucked up. Like, I think the first game that everyone is fully aware of as an Embracer game was Saints Row 5. And, you know, the quality of that notwithstanding, when that game failed, they moved Volition from where it was under Deep Silver to being under Gearbox, which is one of the most fucked up things you could do in the gaming industry. Like imagine being told your boss is now Randy Pitchford. That's fucking horrible. No one deserves that.
Yeah, I don't think that's the first Embracer Group thing, because Darksiders, they had a new Darksiders game, didn't they? It was the top-down one that no one liked.
I think that's the first thing that everyone was aware was an Embracer thing.
Okay, that was THQ Nordic before they named themselves Embracer. So this is the first time this brand name Embracer has launched a big AAA game. Though, wait, what was Mutant Year Zero, was it? No, not Mutant Year Zero. That's a different game. It's another game about mutants, mutant animal game. Do you remember this? Damn it,
no.
What was it called? Not Mutant Year Zero. It was like this big open world thing. It came out 2021, I think. Biomutant. That was it. That was another.
I don't remember that.
You don't remember Biomutant? It was like a really ambitious game. Came out May 2021. It had like tons of ideas, like you could customize your animal and mutate them a million different ways, and it had like, it was way too ambitious for what it could possibly achieve, and it got very bad reviews. It's already forgotten, apparently.
But yeah, I don't think this company is very well managed at all.
No, I think something does not smell right about them. Anyway. We do have, I feel if we're going to talk about weird Square Enix games, we should probably move on to Forspoken, right?
Right.
Okay. So
the discourse around this game has been so fucking stupid. But stupid enough that it actually makes me more intrigued about it than I was before.
Okay, so Forspoken is a new game by Luminous Studios, which were the people that made Final Fantasy 15 minus the director. You can see some Final Fantasy 15 in there because the world of Althea, it has in its like skyscape like big giant arcing things. Like, you know how Final Fantasy 15 has those big like, I don't know, bridges or whatever you can see off in the distance?
Right. Yeah.
It's got that same kind of thing. I don't know what that means, but this stars Frey Holland, who I've discovered. Do you know why she's named Frey Holland?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, so she was found as a baby at the Holland Tunnel, which I guess the twist is going to be that she's from the land of Althea, because the Holland Tunnel is where this, the Isekai warp thing is that she falls into. It's going to turn out, you were from Althea the entire time. All right. She does
the
joke.
portal she discovers while staying at the Crossroads Hotel.
Yeah.
Because this opening is written with the subtlety of a David Cage game.
Well, she does joke. I was really glad I wasn't found at like the RFK bridge or something, or the Crosstown Expressway. Be like, oh, I'd be Frey Crosstown Expressway. I don't think the writing's that bad. I think the acting's pretty okay.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing. Like, you know, a lot of people have compared the dialogue in this to, like, the MCU. And I can kind of see it, but that is not the impression I got from it at all. Like, there's two comparisons I thought of. One, as a more humorous example, it's like, you know, when you're playing a D&D campaign, and then your friend spends all this time setting up this world with this setting around it, and here's your objective and whatever, and all you want to do is come in and cuss him out and take the piss out of the world. Or
no,
for
I don't
non-British
know this
people,
feeling
to
at
make
all.
fun of the world.
I don't know.
Okay,
this
well, that's
feeling,
all I
but
ever do when I play
I'll-
D&D.
All right, that makes sense.
That's all I ever do. Like, you know, like they set up all these grand characters that are all like, oh, here's the ancient wizard who has this spell, and you just want to go in and just make fun of them. That was the only, like, impression I ever got from
Techno,
this.
do you
it's
get
just
invited?
someone going in.
Do you get invited to a lot of D&D campaigns? Because I wouldn't invite you to mine if I had one.
I run my own D&D campaigns as well.
Okay.
But the answer is yes. And mostly we just go in and fuck around. But anyway, so that was the first like thing it reminded me of. The second, it reminded me a lot of Final Fantasy Origins. Like, you know, how the main character basically just does not give a fuck about this world and is just cussing it out. That was what it reminded me of. So I just like, and I just don't understand why, like, to me, it seems the main difference between these two games in that respect is one has Final Fantasy in the title and the other doesn't. But maybe someone who's played those games can explain the difference to me.
Well, I could continue, because, like, she does not give a shit about the world that she's walked into. It's not like Jack, where, like, Emperor Final Fantasy II will float down and he's like, yeah, you look like somebody who would say bullshit like that. It's just, I love Jack's great. He's character of the year 2022. Clearly, Jack was it. No, she's an outsider that landed in this world and wants to go home. That's her initial reaction. I'm only about 2.5 hours in.
Right.
She's not unhelpful to the people. She's landed in this place where I will say there's kind of a feeling of compromise in this game, because most of the world is like empty and full of zombies and monsters and killer bears that look like the creature from Annihilation. And there's like one town, and that town might already be on fire. So there may be no town soon. I don't know. That's one thing that worries me. I do think that the actress Ella Balinski, she's nailing it pretty well. There's an early scene where she's sleeping in her abandoned apartment, which somehow or another she was able to find an abandoned apartment in Hell's Kitchen, which I know in the past that's where Daredevil? Daredevil. That's where Daredevil's from. And it had this reputation of being this hard place, but like Hell's Kitchen now is super nice. You go there to find parking so you can go see a Broadway play. And there is a poster for Phantom of the Opera. I'm rambling a little bit, sorry. Yeah, I think like her scene where she's in her abandoned apartment and she has this moment that feels a lot like if this was a musical, she'd be singing her I Want song, which is like, tomorrow I've made enough money doing my petty crimes. I'm going to get on a train and I'm going to get out of New York City. And she's sleeping in this sad apartment.
Yeah, like the one from In the Heights as an example.
Kind of like that, yeah. She doesn't take her sneakers off when she goes to bed, which annoys me. Because, like, were you raised in a fucking barn, girl? Like, come on. Take your damn shoes off. You're going to get your shit all over those sheets, which are nice looking. I actually felt emotions in that moment. I felt bad for her in this sad apartment with her cute cat, which then gets set on fire. And her face seems to be scuffed for the rest of the game after that. The combat is really good.
I will say the story is sounding very generic to me.
Yeah, it is generic, but it is not offensive or cringy or whatever. It feels like a lot of people taking things out of context. And I will also say, my suspicion here is that if this game did not star a black female protagonist, these quote-unquote cringy lines would probably be getting much less traction. Though, I can also say...
To other people, but in my personal opinion, I'd hate it more.
Though I'd also say, I do not believe there is a black female writer working on this game. It does feel extremely like a game
I got that impression too.
It still feel extremely like an inauthentic game where it's made by people who are not from New York City, who have not had this life. And they're going and placing it here. So, like, maybe they should have just had a Japanese...
It's assumedly it's a Japanese writer.
Yeah. Maybe they should have had a girl from Tokyo come to Althea and then... Or hire a black female writer to do this.
Like, the writers, I think, are all white Americans.
Oh, are they?
Oh, really?
I thought this was all Japanese.
Nope.
That was my assumption too. Interesting.
You know, she's English. Ella Belinsky, English. I did not realize that.
Yeah, so a lot of people really don't care for this writing, and I understand it. To me, I will say that some of the scenes actually made me more endeared to this game, if anything. But based on what Blue's told me, I've now turned my opinion down to, oh shit, I don't think I would like it that much. Because it sounds very by the numbers.
I would say this is not a game to buy for $70. It has really... It has really good combat. I'll give it that. You spin around. She moves as fast as Sonic the Hedgehog. You got magic you can throw, and it does splash damage, and it beats the shit out of a whole bunch of zombies. And that's pretty fun. I think the dodge is a bit weird, because you have to hit, like... Circle is your run around button, and I think you gotta hit circle at the right time to dodge, but it feels very finicky. There's probably a good way to do it. I'm not sure. You have to use Estus flasks to heal. And I'm going to be honest, I'm tired of fucking Dark Souls mechanics in games that are in no way Dark Souls.
Yep. Yep. Like, I mean, Souls-like in general is becoming very generic these days to the point where, like, I don't even think I'm going to play the next Star Wars Jedi game because I didn't really care for Fallen Order that much. You know, I mean, and I want to be fair to that game. I'm glad it exists. I'm glad we finally had a decent single-player Star Wars game in a long-ass time. But, yeah, I mean, I don't find these games all that fun. So that's also somewhat off-putting to me.
You know what? I thought Fallen Order's issue was not the Souls-like stuff. I actually found the running around kind of vaguely open world level thing to be more boring than the Souls stuff.
I hated
the platforming. Why was there so much platforming in that game?
I will say it's better in that department, for sure.
All right.
It is definitely better in that department. Give me one second.
I have also read one... Oh, Techno's gone.
He might be back.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah,
hey, welcome back.
I didn't know how to mute myself. So
there's a button with a micro that looks like a microphone. The Discord thing.
I can see it now. I'm good.
Okay. So you were saying...
I was saying... Yeah, I mean... at least... the discourse around it has definitely endeared the game to me more because I was more curious about it. But based on what I hear on it, it sounds like a solid get it on sale if it looks interesting.
Yeah. Because I think you spoke over me and I was going to say something. I read in the Polygon review that the game's only about 20 hours long. Maybe even less. Which,
that's not worth $70.
No, this is not the big budget, non-Final Fantasy RPG that I was kind of hoping it would be. At times, it looked
saying if you're just doing the story, it's beatable in 12.
Real? Oh, it's just like Final Fantasy 15. Wow, it is Final Fantasy 15 too, huh? All right.
Yeah, I don't like the discourse where we say like, oh, a game has to be like a certain number of hours long or else I ain't fucking with it. Like, I don't agree with that take. I actually like when games are short if they're good. But this just doesn't sound like that.
Too. I like short games too, but not for $70.
No.
Yeah. To be clear, I wasn't talking like, that wasn't in response to your take on it. It was in response to like, you see people say like, oh man, I only got 200 hours from Animal Crossing. This game sucks. Like, you get some ridiculous like takes on this kind of shit.
Well,
and
I am not going to. I am definitely not going to ink down a precise value for money threshold, but PS5 games in Australia are $125. I'm not paying $125 for something of that way.
Game. Yeah.
Well, how about I put it this way? This is a Square Enix RPG, and you expect those to be about 30 to 40 hours long. And if it's half that long, that kind of means you're not going to get the kind of grand adventure with all sorts of different characters and plot twists and wild disc one, oh my god, everything I thought was true is not true. That's just not going to be the case here. And that could be very dispiriting.
Yeah. So, in summary, the game seems alright. It doesn't seem like it's going to set the world on fire. I don't know what will happen to the studio after this. I think it would depend entirely on how well the game does or doesn't do.
I think this is their last game.
Anyway, as the person who has played Stranger Paradise, maybe I should answer why Stranger Paradise and Forspoken's advertising. I fully admit that this could just be advertising fuck-ups. Feel different to me. But like the big issue is that, when someone's being incredibly dismissive of the situation, when done poorly, it reads like dismissal of the actual setting itself, which just makes it less interesting. When I see some of the big Forspoken moments that people have been cringing at, like Frey is in a fight with her talking wrist cuffing, or like the people she's talking to. She is actively arguing with the world, sort of like trying to convince, which there's an effect of trying to convince the player that the world itself is shit and not worth caring about. In Stranger Paradise...
You're referring to Austin Walker's piece on this, right?
Yes, in part.
Yeah.
When Stranger Paradise does it, yes, Jack is dismissive, he hates exposition, but he does not reject the premise of the world itself. He just doesn't care about the finer details and wants to move on to his next target. He's willing to accept anything as long as you don't tell him what it is, basically. So instead, it comes off as funny when he tries to do something, but punch the lich in the face, but the entire game narrative just ignores that he tried to do that. It doesn't like stop the flow, try to tell him shut the fuck up and listen. That they just go on, and besides, that's like nearly the end of the cutscene anyway. The lich only has like a line and a half left. But ultimately, it comes down to one of them feels like the game is telling you not to care about what happens. At which point, it starts to beg the question of why you are paying attention to this story if it doesn't want you to care about it.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing, SomeColorMage. I don't think the game is like that. I think that is the impression that marketing has gotten, and people have picked select quotes from it. But
it's entirely possible that it's bad marketing. Yes.
But I have seen.
Yeah, I will say
Frey reacts to her bracelet, which talks to her. It's just like, holy fuck, a talking bracelet. And this game starts with a level of reality that she's supposed to be a real person from New York City. So anybody that falls through a wormhole and has a talking bracelet from New York City is going to have the reaction for some time of, holy fuck, it's a talking bracelet.
Yeah, and I think the way you explain the differences to that, that does make a huge amount of sense to me as to the difference between the perception of the two. I think that's an entirely fair way to put it. I will say, just speaking solely from my own experience, My reason, like, I wouldn't play Stranger of Paradise even if this wasn't true, just because I suck at Souls games. But with that said, my reaction to Stranger of Paradise was I just really didn't vibe. Like, I didn't vibe with what I saw from the marketing of the main character in that. And like, you know, with Forspoken, like, it didn't seem especially better in terms of how it was written. It's just the difference was, like, I saw a lot of people, like, you know, almost bullying this game and saying, oh, look how cringe this is, look how bad this is. And I was seeing it, and I was seeing something totally inoffensive and, like, just generic, and I was like, where's the outrage coming from? Like, I don't get what this outrage is about. And, you know, the only differences I can see, like, you know, and before you broke that down, like, the only differences I could see was, one, the point earlier about the demographics of the main character, and the other, that this has Final Fantasy in the title. Or, sorry, that this doesn't have Final Fantasy in the title. Like, it just didn't make sense to me.
I think some people are definitely viewing an easy target, but I mean,
Right.
I hope I would give the impression that I am actually trying to take the advertising at face value and not just immediately dismissing it because the character is not as black as my Gaelic ass. So,
for sure. Like, for sure. Like, I never got that impression from you.
No,
like,
I think the marketing
I didn't
is
even
terrible.
get that impression from. Yeah, I didn't even get that impression from most, like, you know, most of the normal reactions, quote unquote, I saw. Like, the impressions I got was when people would put up a tweet, like, look how bad the dialogue is in this. And then all the quote tweets are all just going to be, what the fuck are you talking about? This looks fine. Like, where is this coming from?
We're also
I mentioned this when I posted the Austin Walker thing in the video channel a few days ago. Like, I don't even fully agree that all of the clips that he posted as examples were bad. Like, the second clip, which was you know, the let me get this straight, I'm blah 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 thing, put in context, I thought that was fine. That was entirely in character for the moment, and she absolutely wasn't. And what happened was not dismissive of the world. Like, yes, it's a Whedonism, but it's not one that is designed to take you out of the moment.
We also should remember we are dealing with Twitter right now, and this is what Twitter's engine is designed to do, which is let's go and find the dumbest opinion, and everyone's going to argue about it. So maybe we could just put it
that's
away.
true too. So
this doesn't really seem like a good discussion, honestly.
Yeah. How about we reconvene next month? I'll have beaten the game by then, and then I can give you a full and honest opinion of what this thing is.
yeah, I think that's fair. But our summary for now is it's probably not worth the money, but it might be worth buying on sale.
And the combat is really good so far.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it's difficult, but it is actually fun to run around and throw shit at guys. I'm digging that.
Yeah. Which, you know, it's not like it might be Souls-like elements from the sound of it, but it's not a Souls-like.
No, it does not play anything like a Souls. It plays like a game where you grab a giant rock that you summon magically and you throw it at a zombie, and then they fucking flop over like they're a bag of dead vegetables.
That sounds badass. Why didn't the marketing focus on that?
The marketing focused on probably endgame level spells that were so complicated that YouTube couldn't play them. They broke YouTube.
Yeah, that is also one problem with the game. They can't actually show off how good it is because it's the Luminous Engine's fucking particles.
So many particles.
And any streaming site throws a complete shit when trying to actually render that.
Yep. So, are we out of news? Let me check. Oh, fandom. God damn it.
Yeah.
Alright, so...
We can blaze through this one real quick, because there's more interesting stuff I do want to talk about.
I know, but we do have to cover this. So, we are finalfantasy.fandom.com, and the fandom part is in there. Fandom recently purchased all of, I think, everything that was CNET Media minus CNET. Am I correct on that? which includes...
They bought all of the former CBS Interactive things except for CNET.
Yes, which was owned by some shitty like chop shop website company called Red Ventures.
Yeah.
And I remember when that happened, I looked at what websites Red Ventures had, and I'm like, they're going to last 2 years and then sell this, and bam, did I call that. So they cut a whole bunch of jobs from Giant Bomb, GameStop, Metacritic, about 10% of the staff across the sites. And yeah, Perkins Miller, our CEO. I guess in theory we work for this guy. He's like, well...
I hate his surname.
Yeah, Oh yeah, he's your he's your brother, right?
Fuck off.
Yeah, so this is...
There's a lot more members in the world.
So this is especially bad for Giant Bomb because that's a site that recently lost Jeff Gerstmann. It's a site I used to be a very big fan of until basically everyone I loved on there moved on. But they had the chance to rebuild themselves. They had very talented people working there, and Wiki bought them and then fired 2 out of their 3 editors, and I would say Giant Bomb is got about, I don't know, a year left before they sunset the whole thing.
Yeah, and especially firing front-facing people on Giant Bomb is a stupid idea, because that's the fucking point of the website.
Yeah, like, why do you even...
It is still like that very kind of gonzo journalism spirit where you're there as much for the personality of the journalist as you are the actual story.
So here's the thing. I wanted to, so when I brought up, at the start of this podcast, I said there's an asterisk next to all of that. The asterisk is basically, a lot of these high-profile layoffs that you're seeing right now. A lot of people were saying, oh, this spells the death of the tech industry, and this is XYZ. And there was a lot of, really hyperbolic takes. But when you look into it, what it actually was basically the reason they were doing layoffs is because everyone else was. It was herd mentality.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
That's effectively where this came from.
That doesn't help.
It doesn't help. It doesn't help.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is herd mentality, and it just shows that these people are fucking incompetent dumbasses.
Yeah, completely. Basically, what happened was they were all... Yeah, Catuse just posted an article on it. But basically what it was, a couple companies said, we had this strong growth in the pandemic and we were stupid and we thought that would be permanent. Turns out it's not permanent. We hired way too much. So let's downsize a little bit. And then all the companies are all coming out with effectively the same statement. And the reason they're doing it is because it helps their stocks. So fucking stupid. But with that said, for example, Google, I think it laid off, I want to say around 15,000. But in 2020, Google hired 18,000. 2021, it hired 22,000. So there's still more people working for Google today than there was in 2019, right?
This is all
it's
very
herd
much... Yeah, it's
all
very
a
much
load of
not
bullshit.
just the herd mentality. It's very specifically a West Coast American herd mentality.
Yes.
This shit isn't happening the rest of the world. There is not giant waves of tech layoffs. I'm over here doing contract work for Dolby. Everything here is fine.
Right, the United States and Australia are basically the two places that respect software engineering the most. So those are where all the software companies are. And, it's not just West Coast United States. It's also...
it depends on what it is, because the state of the gaming industry in Australia has been dire for over a decade now.
Yeah, I'm specifically referring to, not that part. Because Japan, for example, they have a good gaming industry. They don't have good software, anything else. But, I'm around Texas, right? And, basically, a lot of West Coast companies are based here. But,
tax reasons.
Aside from those,
for tax reasons.
Well, yeah,
mostly.
tax reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. But, a lot of them might have, set up camp here. But, in my company, for example, they're still desperate for new people. the layoffs are great because they're like, oh, we have this for us, I should say. The layoffs are great for us. It's like, oh, we have this access to a talent pool that we didn't previously have. You know, like, so the whole thing is just herd mentality bullshit by a bunch of CEOs that wanted to make their stocks look good. And a lot of a lot of workers were fucked over in the process, which is really sad for people on work visas, for example, people in the same situation as me, where basically if we get laid off, then we have 60 days to find another company or we're fucked. We have to go home. Like, but for those people out there, there are a lot of support groups you can find on LinkedIn and elsewhere that will get you set up with a new job, and hopefully it will be with one of those companies that doesn't have a stupidly long interview process. But yeah, I mean, reach out on LinkedIn. We'll help you out. We'll do what we can. We're not gonna let you, get fucked over by like these dumbass CEOs like that.
Okay. I will say it is interesting. Like, there's been a bunch of layoffs across games media and things like that. One company that has not done major layoffs is Ubisoft. I think mainly because they're based in Canada, and France, where there's very different labor laws. This is kind of ridiculous. We're just going to fire a whole bunch of people just to prove a point. Whatever point that is, be it some kind of, in my conspiracy brain, it's like, well, our labor's gotten too uppity. Let's fucking knock them down. Shut up anyone that's talking about unions. Whatever it is, they can't do that. Which means systematically this is just a failure of the American labor system. That if companies can do something this dumb for really no good reason, and I think Catuse linked to the same article I've read where somebody made a very good point as to why mass layoffs are a bad idea, likening it to buying labor high and selling low. It's just getting new employees is a very expensive process. Getting people on board for your company, if you just hire them and then you're firing them off, that's a big loss. You're not looking... Maybe it looks good on your books that, like, I'm a hardcore, I'm going to tighten my belt, look at me. But it's not actually a good way of running anything. And that's all it's
about,
Yeah.
That's all it's about. It's telling your investors, oh, look at us, we've had lower performance. We're, like, thinking about that.
Look
it's
at me.
So stupid.
There was a really good article I could also post. I think it was a satire article where it's like, macroeconomic trends mean I can't pay you. I'm sorry. Not taking a cut. Not taking a pay cut. Sorry, the Soulja Boy concert we had. CEO.
Soulja
Boy concert we had, those tickets are non-refundable, so we can't cut that. But your job, fuck you.
Yeah, Apple CEO, Apple, one of the few that didn't do this. He just cut his salary bonus from 150 million to 50 million. Wow, what a hero! But yeah, I mean, it's all ridiculous. It's all, it's all a load of bullshit. But on the fandom side specifically, fandom is backed by private equity, which is a little different from being backed by venture capital. So they are very risk averse with how they're backed. And yeah, I mean, I have been perplexed by a lot of the decision making that the companies had. They sold off D&D Beyond, which was an enormous source of revenue for them, and they bought these companies, and they don't seem to know what they're doing with them. It's perplexing to me, but yeah.
One thing I have to add is that if you look at CNET and what a dumpster fire it's become under Red Ventures, sadly, this fuckery is actually better than what was in its future if it had stuck. If the other sites had stayed there, because CNET is just complete shit now. They have been writing articles with AI. It's full of full of errors.
Oh
yes,
no.
It's been full of errors. It took a week of more reputable journalism sites shitting on them for having basic technical errors in how finance works before they finally say, okay, fine, we'll take the AI down for review. We'll fix this, and they still plan on bringing it back. It's a disaster. What it does should not really be considered writing anymore.
Yeah, I do have, that actually leads me to a bone I was not going to pick right now, but I do have a bone to pick with basically the entire tech industry right now in the United States and maybe around the world, where I don't think the tech industry has come up with a good idea in about 10 years, like since smartphones have come around. Like cloud computing, all that other stuff.
Smartwatches were pretty good.
Yeah, it's cloud computing's okay, all that other stuff. There's nothing that feels revolutionary or impressive or like this is actually going to make the world a better place. And in the case of AI, provably will make the world a worse place. Because all you do is you wipe out jobs. And if you have a thing make up an article or make up a painting for you, that becomes worse art. Genuinely, what is good about...
I will say...
Yes?
I will say on the AI point, the current studies suggest it actually adds more jobs than it takes away. Currently.
Yeah, well,
So,
I'm going to say,
asterisk
whatever
next to
CNET
that.
is doing right now, it needs real people to actually write that shit versus let me go and have a very
Yes.
dumb program do things. Because I'm going to tell you right now, in my experience with computers are fucking stupid.
Yep.
That is what every programmer will actually tell you, is like when you get right down to it, programming is a bunch of buckets of bolts thrown together. And I don't even do a job that's very tech intensive, but what tech I run into fails constantly. And genuinely, what is good about art and creation, and I'm just going to finish this rant right now, is the fact that somebody actually did it. That is what is good about writing, is the fact that it is an idea, it is an expression of human emotion and human thought. And outsourcing it to a fucking dumbass AI thing to go and pump out your bullshit means maybe your bullshit doesn't need to exist in the first place, and don't fucking do it. Just ban this shit. Just be done with it.
Yep.
Okay. A computer does exactly what you tell it to, no more, no less, and it does not understand subjective qualities. So, no, you cannot tell a computer to write something and make it good because it does not know what good is, so it will just write something and the quality is a crapshoot.
Yeah, what I consider the failures of computing to be on my end, because I work in the health industry, it is simply a way for companies to have an excuse for why they can't do their job and why people cannot get the services they need. That is what it is for. We have this broken fucking thing that will not work.
It's the same case in the NHS.
Yeah.
It's the same thing in the NHS.
Yep.
Which is the UK's health service.
Well.
So, we're going to talk about the good topic now?
Yeah, we're going extremely long today. But it's the end of the year, 2022, a month later, because a bunch of shit happened last month, so I couldn't get to it now. How does everyone feel about the Wiki and Final Fantasy now, a year more in our lives that have passed?
Better than I have ever felt about this Wiki in the whole time I've been here. And that might sound like a big statement, but it is very much the case. Like, I am, we started last year on a somewhat optimistic note about the Wiki. And this year, let me just tell you, I'm so proud of you all. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Not just people on this call, this whole community, past, present, everyone. I'm so proud of you all. Because how this site is shaping up to be, I am, I am filled, I don't want to use the word pride again. I'm filled with very positive emotions with how I feel about how this is going about and where it's heading and the direction, I really feel like it's shaping up to reach the potential we've always had.
Okay. Let me do a homie check-in right now. Catuse, SomeColorMage, how you guys feeling about us keeping going right now? Do you guys need a break?
I can keep going for another hour and a quarter.
Okay.
I could go on for a bit longer.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I'm not in a huge hurry to do anything.
So how do you guys feel about the Wiki?
You first, Kat.
I mean, I think it's in a pretty good shape. It's just one of these things where it just gets bigger and bigger, and we always need more people working on, programming projects, more people managing files, more people. Right now, more people maybe to moderate the Discord, more people writing articles. The wiki has gotten very large, and it needs probably a larger team than we have to keep it going. But this is a good problem to have.
Yep.
And we are not lacking on actual, volunteers. It's just that we are traditionally rather slow on promoting people unless they actually come up to us and say, "Hey, I've used this site a lot. I want to do things that require elevated privileges." Which, if you're listening and you want to do that, there should be a link to that in the header of the site under the in the staff directory or something like. It's not directly linked from the header, but if you go to the staff directory, there is a link to the promotion page in the lead. But yes, I do feel that the quality of the site writing has significantly improved. Techno, among others, is definitely to thanks for that. Just providing a more unified layout. The site design. This has become a lot easier than it was in yesteryear, and this isn't particularly a new change, but back in November, December, we had to change the live theme to the Crisis Core, and just switching everything back in is a lot easier than it used to be, and we have a good template that'll keep going on forevermore. We might need to do something a bit different for 16, but all the elements are already there for 7 Rebirth, and most of the elements are already there for 14 version 7. Because I guess back on 14 chat for a second, one thing that they also added is that they added a new UI option, which is explicitly inspired by Final Fantasy VII Remake's menus. Well, what a coincidence! Our default layout is also inspired by Final Fantasy VII Remake's menus. So they'll make that a lot easier when that comes around.
For sure.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's been some stuff going around on the Discord recently. I don't want to be down there, and people are still hashing it out. So
we don't need to get into that. I don't think we could get into Discord.
So we don't need to talk about that. Is there anything else to talk about?
Other than my stuff.
I guess I could.
On the topic of stuff, one thing that we've put off for years because nobody ever bothers to think about it is that we don't have any stuff on the wiki forum equivalent to discussions thing. Which it'd probably be better to have someone who's faster response on it than me, because all I do is check the report queue every so often. I think that's everything I can think of.
Okay. I guess I'll say my limited piece, which is that I don't edit. I do use the wiki regularly because I like Final Fantasy and I like to show people Final Fantasy things. I think the wiki looks pretty damn good. The only problem is, I think, fandom level stuff, because the mobile site works much better than it did a few years ago. Still too many friggin' ads.
Actually works.
Yeah, there's still too many friggin' ads. The auto-playing video ad thing is less annoying than it used to be. My biggest complaint is that it's hard to copy pictures off the page off mobile. And that's something we can't fix.
Yep. Yeah. But, yeah, so I mean, honestly, I'll just give an update on what I'm mostly working on for this year. So I'm really, really hoping, and I'm gonna cross all my fingers and all my toes when I say this, that Final Fantasy VII content will all be ready by the time Rebirth releases. Like, and I mean all of it. So I mean, the big one that we actually got a lot of good traction on Twitter for is we're gonna remake the timeline page, and we have our translator Mako is I don't know how you pronounce her name, but she's this.
I've never even
I don't know how you pronounce her name.
I've never even thought about how to read it. Like, I've never even thought what those phonemes could even add to. Like,
I don't know. I've never known how to pronounce her name, but she's a super funny person who we always have back and forth banter with. But she's always reliable as a translator, and she has been translating all bits of the Ultimanias and other sources we can get, just so we can put together a comprehensive Final Fantasy VII timeline page that is better than the one we have now. Because the one we have right now is pretty much just it. We got it from the livestream.net, and on the livestream.net they did a lazy ass job with it, because they just said, "Oh, this was from Final Fantasy 10th Anniversary Ultimania and some other sources, including Crisis Core. We're not going to tell you which one's which. We're not going to tell you where we got this from. No, we're just going to say it's here." So then, someone pointed out to us,
it was all correct. It's just that we can't properly cite it.
Yeah,
right,
I think
exactly.
I might have written this page originally, or I know I copied most of it from the livestream.net. Because, like, I know all these year things.
Like,
it's got a weird year system where for some reason year 0 is, I think, a few years before Final Fantasy VII, and there's no in-universe explanation.
7 years before.
There's no explanation given as to why that would be year 0, and why they have a whole bunch of Greek letters.
War.
Yeah, but why do they have Greek letters as their years?
There's no explanation for that. No.
And also, like, some of them are just clearly not intended to be the character, and just like, what's the closest way of making something look like the word era in Greek?
Oh, is that what that's supposed to be?
Yeah.
Like, that's what that's supposed to mean? Holy shit.
Wow.
That's so stupid.
I've learned something. And it is extremely dumb.
Yeah. Yeah, but basically, like, so we're redoing the timeline page from scratch, where, Mako is actually going down and chasing down all the different books to find all the different scraps of information. So we're getting a fully reliable translation, this time done by us, not outsourced to the livestream.net. And we're gonna do that, and we're basically gonna, like, rewrite this page. So between that and we have Final Fantasy VII script, I transcribed the full game. Final Fantasy VII script is now done. Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII script is done. 7 Remake script is done. Between those 3, we can now officially rewrite every Final Fantasy VII page. And when I say rewrite, I'm just going to clarify. I don't mean, like, completely just from scratch as if the original didn't exist, because we're still very much building on the original work. Like, every page I've rewritten, I have had to take what was done originally and kind of, like, repackage it in a way. So we're gonna get every page for Final Fantasy VII is gonna be rewritten. It's gonna be in tip-top quality shape. I really hope this is all gonna be ready before Rebirth, but the stretch goal is to get it ready before 16, because I'm not gonna be writing for 16, and that is not to do with 16 itself. Like, I'm now very excited for 16, and that's why I don't want to write for it, because for once I want a Final Fantasy game that I can just play it and enjoy it and not have to worry about, how am I going to edit for this, and how am I going to, like, and I'm not allowed to look at spoilers because, what if some vandal writes something and I have to check that it's correct. Like, I for once want a Final Fantasy that I can actually enjoy it. That's the only reason I'm not writing for 16. But I'm hoping with the 7 stuff, I'll be able to set the bar that 16 and future games will be able to live up to. And yeah, so I mean, I'm just really proud of us all that we've been able to like put all this together. And you know, this wiki has existed for I think since 2006. And if you compare how 2005, it's existed since then. If you compare how we've been when we started out versus how we are now, I really think we've come a long way. And you know, I'm just really proud of us and proud of everyone on this call. Like, you know, yeah. And it's not even just me doing the rewriting, because we have this one guy in Nocturne. Like, I just checked, he just rewrote the page for Angeal. Like, and I didn't really direct him very much on this one, because I mentored him with a lot of his earlier pages, and they turned out extremely good, like Jesse, for example. And I checked his page for Angeal, and this was the one I've had the least amount of input on. And that's a solid freaking page. Like, that's like, you know, that's a really, really good page. Like, to the point where I'd say I don't think I could have done better myself. Like, so I'm just phenomenally proud of us. Okay. Like, so with the timeline and the script pages done, we can rewrite all the lore for this game. And then, so I'm going to get to the main topic today of
wait, what?
The new layout.
Wait, there's
Before
a new...
you go to the main topic, well, your main topic, whatever it is, I'd also like to add to the timeline stuff. That timeline page was also rather outdated, because like when we started doing this rewrite, we're just focusing on the books that were included in the live stream's timeline, and then I bought a copy of the Final Fantasy VII Remake Material Ultimania. Like the morning I got it, I was looking for it on the train, and then like I just messaged Techno, hey, you realize that? Do you know there's like a construction history of Midgar listed in here that we don't have anywhere?
Yeah, I heard about that.
Wait, that's not on the live stream anywhere? Did I fuck that up?
messaged you about it.
I feel bad that I didn't
No,
catch
it's
that.
not. No, Blue, you couldn't have caught it because that book didn't exist then.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
that book came out last year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Before you go on to your like Guernica or whatever the hell it is that you want to talk about,
Go on. Yeah.
since we're talking about wiki stuff, I just want to make a shameless request. If there's I don't know if there's anyone out there who's listening who's interested in Final Fantasy XIV, like data mining, or like knows Python or Lua, especially if you know Lua. Please let me know if you're interested in Final Fantasy XIV, like data mining and automatically like putting that stuff on the wiki, because I'm an old man now. I don't have time to do this. What will be a massive programming project myself. So please let me know if you can help. Thank you. Okay, you can talk about the Jelnica or whatever now.
I thought you said Guernica.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah,
it's interesting because you know, the way the vehicle was translated was translated as Galnica. But if you look at what the original Japanese Romaji was, it was trying to be Guernica, question mark, which is a totally different thing. And then in 7 Remake, they retranslated it as Raunica. So I don't know.
Okay, so
but
Guernica is the famous bomb city in Spain from the Spanish Civil War that I think Picasso painted.
Right, that is correct. Yeah, and I don't know, maybe they wanted to name it after that, but apparently they didn't. I don't know, it's weird. But basically, so one of the main things I've really been doing with this 7 rewrite, I've been going through the location pages, and I've been writing quest pages for Final Fantasy VII, which we didn't previously have. So the location pages for this game, and I want to say all the location pages on the wiki. And before I say this, I mean no disrespect to the previous staff, no disrespect to the previous people who came on this, because like I understand how this happened, but I feel like our location pages were not good because they didn't serve any type of reader. So to clarify what I mean by that. So when you look at a location page for any of the games, so for example, if you look at Galnica, which is one of the ones I've linked to, there are 3 types of people who are looking at the Galnica page. The first one is someone who's interested in the lore behind Galnica. They're like, what kind of ship is this? They're interested in the stuff that you can find in, for example, the Ultimania archive, which will tell you how long it is, like, what kind of ship it is, how Shinra built it. Interested in all the background information for it. The second type of person looking through a page like that is someone who's in the sunken Galnica dungeon and they're stuck and they need help. And our page did not serve that reader very well either, because we have gameplay information in there, but we didn't have a clear, here's how you get through it. No, instead they were expected to go find the walkthrough pages themselves, such as BlueHighwind's walkthrough, which I should add is a very good walkthrough. No, it's very good.
Okay.
I'm using it right now.
I know,
it's very good.
It is a walkthrough that was made for a function which is not entirely just to go and transfer information how to get you through the game. And some people might just want to get through the game and do not want to get random 2007 humor thrown in their face.
Which is what the chapter pages do. So the chapter pages for these games, which I've added, they include the information as to what the chapter entails. So, for example, the chapter in Sunken Galnica is actually toward the Sea of Stars. And that chapter is after you obtain the submarine. This is the bit where you can then go to Galnica, and it's basically the main story of the chapter is in the rocket. It's the bit where you get the huge materia from the rocket. And this chapter, it's not clear what this chapter is in the game because the chapter exists from the Ultimanias. But we were able to take this book that lists chapters from the game and divided the game up that way and say, oh, okay, so this occurs toward the Sea of Stars, or this occurs during Marco Cannon Rampage, which is the part where you return to Midgar. We're able to do that now fully. Now, the third type of person who would come to these location pages is someone who isn't necessarily looking for a step-by-step, how do I get through it, but they're more looking for like, oh, where's Yuffie's weapon? Or like, what can I find while I'm here? Like stuff that's not necessarily the structured bit by bit by bit by bit going through the story, just a non-linear, what's in this location, right? So there were 3 types of people that would come to one big page that was trying to serve all 3 and didn't really do that very well. And basically that was because it had to not only do all these 3 things, but if a location existed in Crisis Core, like Junon, for example, if it existed in Crisis Core, now all of a sudden it needs this whole other giant part of the page to explain how to get through it in Crisis Core. And someone who just wants to find, how do I get through the quest in Junon, where how do I just get Tifa out of the gas chamber in Junon? They don't need to scroll through all the history of it in Crisis Core and all of that shit. They don't need that. Equally, if you're in Crisis Core and you just want to get through that chapter, you don't need to know how to get Tifa out of the gas chamber. So what I've done with these pages is I split them up into 3 different ones. So now you have Junon, the page that gives you the lore information about Junon. Junon Final Fantasy VII Field, which gives you the page on how, basically all the information about the location as you run into it, regardless of what quest you're in. This is all the stuff that exists in Junon, the field that you go to in Final Fantasy VII. There's an equivalent for Crisis Core as well. And the third one is the actual quest pages for, the events that take place that happen to be in Junon. And on that one, you would get a step-by-step walkthrough for it. So,
Okay.
and I feel in being able to give these specific functions and these specific use cases, in being able to give them breathing room and structure pages around them, where like the Junon page has a very Wikipedia style layout and explains it from a lore perspective, and the Junon Final Fantasy VII field page is more similar to what the original wiki was going for in listing the gameplay information. I feel like in being able to give these parts breathing room, it's really served the page a lot better, and I think it really helps the readers a lot more. But
Okay.
I'm interested to see what other people's perspectives on this are.
I mean, you've asked my opinion about splitting gameplay and story or like lore like several times already, and I think I've always approved, except in maybe like weird exceptional cases. So yeah, I mean, I look at the pages look good. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't have a whole lot to say here.
No, I think,
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
I think it's a smart decision because our wiki is ultimately serving two purposes, which are not always the same thing. It is kind of there's a running issue in game theory which is called narratology versus ludology, which is what is a game? Is it what you do, or is it the story that it's telling? And our wiki, of course, has to do both of those things at the same time because we are a video game wiki for the most part. So that becomes, what are we actually trying to do with the sunken plane from Final Fantasy VII, whatever it's called? And I think splitting it's a whatever. You know, now it's very confused. I don't know what it's called. There was a name that I knew for decades now, and you've made it complicated. I don't know. Did the Germans bomb it or did they not? I have no idea anymore. So,
Well, it's kind of this like the thing that's called the Guernica was used to bomb a village in Crisis Core. So,
oh shit! So they reversed it. What was bombed in the Spanish Civil War by the fascists is now a fascist icon that is bombing. Wow, there's a lot going on there. So yeah, I think it's a smart decision.
I didn't know the Guernica thing, so I just spent like the first minute of that conversation thinking, wait, where the fuck does Xenoblade 3 enter into this equation?
There's Guernica and Xenoblade 3 too.
He's like the game's fandom. He dies at the very beginning.
Oh wow. Yeah, so I think it's a smart decision, and it may not work for every single video game that we have, because, like, Final Fantasy III, there really isn't lore for... I mean, there is a tiny bit of lore, but, like, a paragraph for most worlds. So, yeah, you know, I think that's a good choice. And
on the flip side of that as well, like, you know, so I didn't do this for Final Fantasy V when I rewrote that game. And the reason I didn't do that is because the locations in Final Fantasy V... from a gameplay perspective, are extremely simple. So there wouldn't be much for me to say on a layout section of all the different areas of, for example, like Lena's castle. There's just not that much to say on it. So there might be on Final Fantasy VI. That one might make a lot of sense to do it that way. Haven't done 6 yet. I will look at it sometime this year if I have time between this wiki and the Ratchet and Clank wiki. But, like, yeah, so I just think this makes a lot of sense for Final Fantasy VII in particular, but also all the games after this. Like, you know, Final Fantasy X-2 is where it's really going to make a lot of sense. Like, because, you know, the X-2 pages, they will say, like, oh, here's the layout in Final Fantasy X. Here's the exact same layout in X-2. And it's like, you know, now the new way we have it set up, we can make a separate one for how it is in 10 and a separate one for how it is in 10.2. So like that's been really like the biggest change while I've been working on these, and you know now being able to create these quest pages as well. And so yeah, I just like, I mean, I'm glad that there's broad agreement that it has worked out, because you know this was something I tried back when 7 Remake was first done. And, you know, now I've done it for the rest of the game, and, you know, I'm happy that we seem to have broad agreement that this seems to work for people.
Okay,
yeah, I mean, there are a lot of things that we...
Sorry, we are starting to hit our 2-hour mark here, so why don't we, unless anyone's got, like, really important wiki things, we could table it for another podcast. We can do one last year review thing, which is Final Fantasy of the Year. Everyone want to move on to
Okay.
that? Okay. So
Okay.
we have
Yes,
a
Leia,
few
go ahead.
candidates. Final Fantasy of the Year 2022. Where did I put our candidates? Damn it, we talked a lot on Penguins, so I can't find it now. Where was it? My goodness. Sorry, I'm failing you. Oh yeah, we have 5 candidates, okay? Because there were really only 5 Final Fantasy games that came out last year in 2022. They are number 5, Chocobo GP. Anyone think that's Final Fantasy of the Year?
No.
No one does.
No.
Final Fantasy 14. Who thinks that's Final Fantasy of the Year 2022?
I mean,
Mine
I
better
struggle
fall.
to put it on Game of the Year 2022 list because the Endwalker was a 2021 release. But compared to the rest of this list and discounting the one that I know you're going for, which isn't actually a Final Fantasy game,
Hey,
it
we'll
just
have a
wins by
discussion.
default.
No, I think you're absolutely right. Final Fantasy 14 has been Final Fantasy of the Year for like the last 8 years.
Yeah, it just wins by default.
It just wins by default. It is so
Yeah.
powerful that we could actually take Final Fantasy 14 off because you no longer have a meaningful discussion of what Final Fantasy of the Year is, which is a concept I
Yes.
just made up about a minute ago.
Yeah, so all right, so we'll remove that one from the list.
That
What's the next
that
one?
has a super category of being Final Fantasy of the century. And
Yeah.
next up,
Which is probably fair.
Strangers of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. Anyone think that's Final Fantasy of the Year?
This is probably going to be the best of my lot because, like, I can see the list, and Final Fantasy 14 would have been there, but that's cheating. There's the one that I haven't played, and the other thing on there. I mean, we'll talk about it when it brings us up, but I really do not think it's the best showing. So, Strangers of Paradise basically is just the only option for me there. It's I am going to get into really stupid Australian slang here, but basically Bradbury'd the entire thing.
What?
It won because everyone else that could have been ahead of it just fell the fuck over.
Okay. Oh, so it.
Yeah, I will say.
Yeah, no, keep going.
Go ahead.
I did not have a good metaphor.
Oh, okay.
I didn't add a.
Okay. I will say I was never gonna be huge on this game just because I don't like Souls-like. It's the game could be the best Souls-like game ever made. It could be better than Elden Ring, and I still probably wouldn't. It still wouldn't be my game of the year just because Souls-like just doesn't vibe with me. So. But I will say that just because this game isn't for me shouldn't disqualify it. I will also say that I find the story and the setting and everything about this game personally unappealing. And there is no, I feel like sometimes when I talk about this game, I sound super negative. I've especially sounded super negative in the Discord. And really, I don't mean to be negative from a sense of, oh, I think this is trash and no one should like it. Because no.
Techno, if
it's
you
a
think-
well-made, competent...
If you think there's another Final Fantasy of the Year, I think we're going to get to it in a second, right?
I do think that.
Okay.
But yeah, so I have sounded unfair on this game, and I don't really think it's that bad. I just think it's something that was personally unappealing to me. It wasn't going to appeal to me just because of the kind of genre it is. And and I think when I originally heard the rumors about there's going to be a game made by this developer and it's going to be about this, I was in my head all these sorts of things it could be. I was oh man, maybe they're going to make Final Fantasy Warriors finally, and it's going to be a Dissidia based game, and I had all these expectations for it, and it just wasn't that.
No. It's
Yeah,
never
I
gonna
mean,
be that.
it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't that. So if
But,
I have been unfair to this game, that's probably the reason.
Okay.
But
but
the
I-
team that they've been working with, it's not the Warriors team. When Square Enix works with Koei Tecmo, they're usually working with Team Ninja. I
Right.
would like Omega Force to get involved and make the Final Fantasy Dissidia Warriors game, because that seems like the best thing that you could do that isn't make a fighting game that's actually like the PSP ones this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, please don't.
I will
make a
say the
PSP
most
like that.
unfavorable, the most unfavorable comparison I've drawn to this game is calling it Shadow the Hedgehog Final Fantasy Origins, which is just a joke name I come up with. Like, I call Ratchet and Clank Size Matters Ratchet and Clank SMH just because it's funny. I don't actually hate that game that much.
I don't get
But
that reference.
this
at all.
game is not my game. Is SMH? Shake my head.
Oh, okay.
Look, this game is not my Final Fantasy of the year. I'm very glad it exists because there are people who really liked it.
Okay. I will say this was the greatest meme that Final Fantasy has had in quite some time, and I am eternally grateful that everyone loved Jack. Everyone did. It was very
Who
important.
could forget the chaos check-ins,
Yeah. The fact that every Discord I go to has a chaos option as a react.
Yep.
All right, that mattered. All right. So, Final Fantasy of the Year, is it Crisis Core Remaster?
It is for me. It is for me personally. Like, I'm just going to say, like, in the interest of not completely reiterating what I said on last episode, like, this is, Crisis Core, the original game, has not held up very well and wasn't amazing to begin with. It had amazing ideas in it, but it wasn't, the execution was basically a 6 out of 10 on all fronts. It was 6 out of 10 gameplay. The story had good ideas in it that weren't executed very well. Like, basically, this was a solid 6 out of 10 game just across the board. And it just did not live up to its potential. Crisis Core Reunion has brought it the closest it could have gotten to reach its potential without straight up remaking the game. Like, the only way you could have made it better, you would have had to fundamentally change things about the game that they just simply weren't going to do in the context of a remaster. So I'm just like, the way that this game has improved, I think makes it just a significantly more fun, more entertaining, more interesting game. So it is my personal Final Fantasy of the year.
Okay.
Right, that is largely where I am with it too. Like, yeah, the Crisis Core PSP game is severely flawed. This fixes the gameplay, but due to its nature, the story, which, it's not terrible, but it is something I am rather cool on outside of the ending, because I think everyone agrees the ending is fantastic, but it is still quite a bit to go through to get there. So it does come down to whether or not you liked Stranger Paradise more. I did. Techno didn't. It's just basically that simple.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, if you vibe with Souls-like games, then Stranger of Paradise is going to be your game of the year. And it's not... it's going to be your Final Fantasy of the year. Because as far as Souls-like games go, I mean, come on. There is a Souls-like game of the year from last year. It was Elden Ring, right?
Well,
but
I mean,
if you really love those types of games...
I mean, SomeColorMage, did you like Stranger of Paradise more, or did you like Elden Ring more?
Okay, so personally speaking, I'm not a big fan of Souls-likes in general. Elden, I actually do find them kind of hard to get into. Like, it's not even just you need to get good stuff. It's just that kind of pattern of eating shit until you learn everything about it is just not something I particularly enjoy.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
you
the
heard it
actual
here.
ability to adjust the difficulty on Stranger Paradise did actually make it appeal more to me. I do recognize that Elden Ring as a technically excellent game. It's just not to my tastes.
You heard it here first, folks. Stranger Paradise, better game than Elden Ring. Final Fantasy wins again. Okay.
But yeah, so if you're a Souls-like fan and you want more after you've tried Elden Ring, and if you're like vaguely interested in Stranger Paradise, I'll say from everything I've seen, that game will surprise you with that story. Like, I've seen some bits about the story and I'll be like, oh, this is actually kind of intriguing. Like, so it is very much worth playing. If you're not a Souls-like fan,
generally speaking, if you like Neo, you will like at the very least the base game of Stranger Paradise, because it's basically just Neo 3.
Oh, okay. Right. So if you're in that vein of video game player, you will like that. If you're at all interested in the world of Final Fantasy VII, and especially for Final Fantasy VII Remake, you will very much you will not be disappointed by Crisis Core. It doesn't even cost as much as a full game does. It is the best way to play Crisis Core now. Like, don't emulate the PSP version. Like, even if you really love Rick Gomez's voice, don't do it. It's not nearly as good as this version.
There's a mod for that for the PC version.
Yes.
Right.
Fans have saved us once again.
Right, so just do that. Just do that. So, yeah, so that's all it's going to come down to.
Okay. All right, now I can tell you the true Final Fantasy of the year. I don't think any of you have played this, even though I've been, screaming about it. This is a game called Chained Echoes, which, despite your claim of not being a Final Fantasy game, is extremely heavily inspired by Final Fantasy XII and Final Fantasy IX and Final Fantasy VI. It's been compared graphically a lot to...
The best three.
Yeah, no, those are very, very good ones. Multiples of 3 usually are very good Final Fantasy games, unless it's 15, as it turns out. This is
unfortunate.
It's been compared a lot to Chrono Trigger because of how your characters all run in a line, but it really doesn't play anything like Chrono Trigger, and story-wise, not really like that either. It is a throwback to 1990s JRPGs and is a full 30 to 40 hour adventure. It is a damn good video game. It was made mostly by one guy, Matthias Linde, who is a German developer, entirely indie, only about $15, $20. I think this game is fantastic. People's only real complaint is that the script is not too good, considering the original writer was not writing in native English. I don't think it's that bad that it's in any way much of a negative. It manages to do everything that a great Final Fantasy game does, including a banger of what's effectively a Disc 1 reveal, and even like a Disc 2 reveal. I think all the characters are really damn good, and there even are gay characters in this. There are casually male and male relationships, female relationships, which are just a thing that exists and is not really commented upon. It is just accepted as being part of the world. And I don't believe that Final Fantasy has ever canonically had a queer relationship. Is that true?
Fang and Vanille?
Yeah, but that's kind of like wink wink. I think textually...
Oh, okay. then no, it hasn't.
I think
that
textually that's still a, oh my god, they're such good friends, is actually how the game handles that.
Okay, well that was... I have not played 13.
Oh. If I recall correctly, there is one side quest in Final Fantasy XIV that has an explicitly gay couple in it, but yeah, not among the main cast.
Final Fantasy XIV also has an NPC named Sappho in it. That's not actually relevant, but it is sort of relevant.
Really? They named them Sappho, but in no way intended anything with that?
Well, I might have. I don't know. I
mean,
I don't remember very much about... Yeah.
Final Fantasy XIV has the goth girl and the girl in the white dress, right? Are they holding hands in official art?
That is something something that's implied, but it is almost it is very you cannot look at the ending of that storyline and say that there is a straight explanation for it. There's even a big fucking gay rock at the end of it. It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
One more thing about Chained Echoes, it's got mechs. You ride mouse.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I'm sold then. I
Yeah.
mean,
It's
you
Final
gotta
Fantasy
play it
12
now.
with Gundams.
Like,
Yes, it's basically
Yeah.
almost exactly that. There's evil gods that you have to overthrow. There's an evil empire. There's a cast of evil generals that are basically the Judge Magisters or the generals from Skies of Arcadia. There's a Balthier that's
I
a
will
female
say-
character.
I will say, Blue, you are very much selling me on this game. The only thing that gives me pause is a lot of games that have been sold as this is a throwback to old Final Fantasy games. This is inspired by XYZ. A lot of times I've played them and I've struggled to get into them. Mostly because I've found them like either too difficult or they just don't completely recapture the magic. Like, you know, like I really wanted to like Octopath Traveler more than I did. And to be clear, I still liked it, but I couldn't finish it.
Well, this is a much better game than Octopath Traveler. Just because of
Okay.
it is a complete story versus 8 kind of mediocre vignettes. And I'll be honest, I
Right.
really don't have much interest in Octopath 2, which is coming out soon. This is,
Yeah.
unlike Bravely Default and a lot of other kind of throwback RPGs, this is not a throwback to the Super Nintendo era. It is a throwback more to the PlayStation 1 era. But with Super Nintendo graphics.
Okay. Gotcha. Interesting. Okay. Okay. Well, I'll have to check it out. Did Sakaguchi's game come out last year, or was that the year before last?
That was definitely
Which
2020.
one of Sakaguchi's games? Fantasian, I guess you're talking about?
Yeah, Fantasia. That's the one.
That was definitely 2020.
I heard great
that-
things about it, but it's Apple Arcade, so almost no
Yeah,
one
I'm
played
not
it.
getting Apple Arcade just to play one game.
No.
Right.
I think it must have been released outside of our Apple Arcade at this point. It's on iOS, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, I heard great things about that. If that didn't come out last year, then it's not a contender. But
No, it did not.
But yeah, so it sounds like Chained Echoes is the best, not a Final Fantasy of the year.
Okay,
And,
how about this?
The Final Fantasy of the year was 14 by the sounds of it. Because
No.
like, I mean,
No. We've already ruled that one out. So at this point, we have me saying Chained Echoes, SomeColorMage saying Strangers of Paradise, Techno, you're saying Crisis Core Remaster, Catuse, you got to
Yep.
decide what was the Final Fantasy of 2022.
So this is a problem because I have not played Strangers of Paradise, I've not played Crisis Core, and I've not played Chained Echoes. I think, based on the descriptions of the game, I think that I would enjoy Chained Echoes the most. However, I'm going to have to cast my lot with Strangers of Paradise
Okay.
because it's the B movie of Final Fantasy. And you know what Final Fantasy always needed? A B movie.
All right, it's a fair
Alright,
victory.
well-
Strangers of Paradise is the Final Fantasy of 2022, and since we've already proved it's a better game than Elden Ring, it is Game of the Year 2022. Final Fantasy wins again. Victory to Final Fantasy, all glory to
fuck
everything.
God of War,
Yep.
fuck Elden Ring, fuck what else came out? Horizon.
My favorite game,
fuck all of them.
Tunic.
I don't know what that is.
Tunic
But
does
yeah,
look very good.
You don't know what Tunic is? All right, we don't have time to get into this because honestly, I want to wrap this up. So,
Yeah, this is way too long already.
yeah, all right. We need to have a discussion about how to make these shorter, but until we get to that, this has been the Final Fantasy Wiki
We
Podcast.
have too many topics to talk about each month.
Maybe we need to split these in two. Maybe we got to do like a news episode and then a whatever else episode. All right. Anyway, this has been the Final Fantasy Wiki Podcast. I'm BlueHighwind. I'm your host. I also edit and all the other stuff, so anything that was wrong, it's entirely my fault. Podcast music is La Montañas de los Jovenes Caballeros. It's based on the Mount Koltz music from Final Fantasy VI. It's made by XPRTNovice. It's off the OC Remix Balance and Ruin soundtrack. The website is FinalFantasyWiki. Whatever.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Okay, the joke's not
It's
even
Final
funny
Fantasy,
anymore.
the fandom.com.
All right, I'm not even doing it as a joke. I'm just legitimately, my brain does not function. Okay, thank you all for listening. We'll be back next month with more Forspoken and other stuff. So see you all then. Bye.
Woo!
Okay, bye-bye.
Hey.
Oh.